What's going on, my legendary people? My name is David, and welcome to another nice episode of the D-constructing Topic podcast. Woo! My name is David, and I'm that legendary host, and you, my legendary people out there listening to this one. And I just want to say we got another good one. But once again, sometimes in life, we kind of always thinking ahead about the future, where we want to be at physically, mentally, spiritually, whatever it is. We got so much that we want to aim that sometimes we kind of forget where we've been at or where we came from or where we at currently. And one of those things that I said to myself, wait a minute. One way to kind of always forever giving myself an introduction of life is to know where I'm from. And hey, listen, I was born in Puerto Rico. But the one place that I very endearing in my heart is racing in the Bronx, the boogie down Bronx. Let's get it. And let me tell you something off the bat, because this is interesting. A lot of people don't know this, but the Bronx was named after a family. I believe the individual name was Jonas Bronx or Bronx or something to that effect. Spelled Bronck. And that's interesting because that's why some people say, wait a minute, I don't get why the Bronx, which is a borough, one of the 5 boroughs of New York City, that consists of New York City, 5 boroughs, Brooklyn, Queens, Staten Island, Manhattan. But you know where? Bronx is that place where we always making it. That's for sure. And people forget why the Bronx, like not the Queens, not Brooklyn. And there's a lot of people that I've been kind of talking to in the last couple of weeks, kind of anticipating for this podcast, is that, yes, it was named after a family, the Bronx family or the Bronx or whatever. And basically, if you're from an area, either like what people consider the Bronx, it would be that thing where, hey, I'm going to visit the Bronx family or the Bronx. And then, went from Bronx, farm to Bronx. You got West Farms, for those who are familiar in the Bronx, but we making it happen. So that's a little nugget. You already know the Bronx is the home of hip hop. Where hip hop started, the Bronx is home of the famous New York Yankees. And we got a soccer team that plays there and FC, something New York FC. What else we got here in the Bronx? We got the Bronx Zoo. Let's go. But I just want to tell people what the Bronx have meant to me because I was raised there. I'm from Puerto Rico, come here as a young kid. And even though I lived in Manhattan for a little bit, if I'm not mistaken, my recollection for my family out there who do remember. And then, when I was a teenage homeless in Brooklyn, downtown Brooklyn. So that kind of opened me to kind of explore the other boroughs. And Manhattan would be that place where, for the most part, is where I do my work and all that good stuff. But the Bronx is the place that I call my home. I love the Bronx. The Bronx is so crazy. And yeah, we get a little bit crapped on because the Bronx, my understanding, is the poorest borough in terms of the average income. But it doesn't mean anything. I always say the thing is this with the Bronx. Because we got savages. We got some wild kids out here, wild people. I don't want people to be like when they watch the news saying, always something happening in the Bronx. Yeah, it's always something. Sadly, one of the events that the Bronx was remembered was the fire in the club. I think it was like 70-something people that died. Happy Land or something to that effect. So that was a big thing. That's one of those things like, it could only happen in the Bronx where somebody caught a little club on fire and then the rest is history. Yeah, it happened in the Bronx. And we got, wild people out here, but I always said that the Bronx is a place where we got some of the smartest people I ever met. And sadly, what happens is that when you come from poor areas of poverty, there's always this negativity going on, and there's always a cloud of something. And we got, some hardworking people. I met a lot of hardworking people in the Bronx, but sadly, the Bronx is that place where a lot of people just kind of get stuck, and it feels like if you're in a little small town and you can't get out of it. But I always said, you know what, move. So the Bronx, it's interesting because you could be in a nice area in the Bronx, and then the next thing you make a right, and you'll be like, what is going on here? But again, I'm going to say that the whole Bronx is beautiful. F that. We got rappers that came from the Bronx, a lot of famous people. I had the list of the who's who, but then I said to myself, you know what? This podcast, this little episode is more of what the Bronx meant to me, how it shaped me for who I am now. And the Bronx is home of this legendary podcast. So I kind of like, you know what? Next time I give a shout out to those people out there, that whatever it is, Cardi B's, New York Yankee players that were born here, Babe Ruth, the legendary Babe Ruth that live here in the Bronx. I'll leave them for another day. You know what I mean? Because I want people to understand what the Bronx is and what it meant to me, especially when I started living in the Bronx, 142nd and Brook Avenue. For those people, shout out 142 in Brook in YouTube, right? Once in a while, we do the thing. And, this is where I tell people, follow me on the YouTube, follow me on any podcast, hit the like, feel free to share and comment the little stories of you got in the Bronx. And me growing up, so I was, the other day, I'm on YouTube doing my recommendation, and there was a gentleman that did kind of like a story of drug dealers back in the early 90s. I shall not name no drug dealers or anything like that, but it's crazy how it resonated with me as a young cat, because you kind of be like, damn, I remember that name. I remember everybody was talking about that dude. How about that gang? We're talking about 1990, 91, 92, right down 142 in Brooks, so Cypress Avenue. It is interesting. In my line of work, I was talking to a sister in arms. She's a security guard, right, in Cyprus, and one of the young cats now these days, doing that thing, hustling. And she's like, oh, I do security, and it's so nice in that area. And I'm like, it wasn't like that 20 years ago or 30 years ago, probably worse 40 years ago. But that area in the Bronx, just growing up, and I remember there was a school, IS 139, which was not my first public school, the first public school that I attended in the Bronx. As a matter of fact, I was living in 151st or something to that effect, like Morris Avenue area. PS1 would be that school. Then I went to PS30 once I moved to 100. Well, once we moved as a family, can't say because I was a little kid. I had no, how can I say that? I had no saying, hey, David, we out. Family, we moving. Then we got PS30 and then IS 139. They were all right in front of me. And I had a good time. And, we learned, because in that area, I remember when I was in school in 139, once in a while you get the PA system, and the teacher would be like, oh, we can't let your kids outside because of a possible school shooting. And there were times that pop out. Now, my understanding, as I gotten old, what I've heard is that, how can I say, there was certain, drug dealers, or big time drug dealers at that time of the early 90s, mid 90s in the Brook Avenue area, that, there was a code to be like, you know what, let's not do this where there's kids around. And basically, this is where the situation would be that they knew a teacher. There's always some connection there. Or they knew somebody in the schools, or whatever the schools is at. Hey, listen, I'm just giving you a heads up, tell your principal, and then the principal will do the announce system. Ain't that something? That's how you grew up. You know what I mean? That made you kind of like think. Sadly, growing up in that area, also a lot of drugs, HIV, AIDS. I always say, when we in poverty, meaning that we are, even though we do consume food, but we don't consume good food, and not consuming good food or not consuming food at all could kind of hinder your growth mentally, physically, and spiritually. So a lot of people in the area, poverty, all that good stuff, hey, listen, that did a lot. And you always, silently, it was a cycle. And I remember being in the 6th, 7th, 8th grade. There were kids that, my age, obviously, their parent, they had an uncle. Somebody was involved in something with drugs, and for some reason it trickled down to the family. I knew of a handful of these young cats who took and decided, hey, listen, let me do a little, let me just tell, because you're always surrounded by, all that good stuff. And I'll make a confession here. I never did any of that stuff. People would be surprised how you did it. It's just that you have to understand, for the most part, coming from another country to come into United States, right? even at a young age, I always felt that this coming here was an opportunity. So you can't mess it up. You know what I mean? Now, I can't say that about other people, let's say other Puerto Ricans, anybody that was not born in the U.S. You come here because an opportunity, but sometimes you get caught up in life. Sometimes you get caught up in this. And the Bronx and in that area, matter of fact, my Haven area, there was so much that one could have done as a kid. There was, I'm telling you. Hey, listen, I'm not here to be making confession, but what I'm saying is this. There was a lot of cracks. And when I say cracks, I mean, no pun intended. Meaning crack as in the drug, and a lot of cracks in the streets, a lot of crack in the system. And basically, I was like not trying to have it because for some reason I always said, David, man, you're going to make something legendary. You're going to make it happen. You're going to help your people. Woo! We're going to finally get things together. That's for sure. And growing up there in that area, I mean, it's really, really kind of, you learn a lot real quick. So by the time you're like 15, 20, you're a little bit more mature than a lot of people. You know what I mean? Because you grew up and, hey, listen. And we always, look, and that's the other thing too. Yeah, you know somebody, you know people, you know a handful of people that became victim of gang banging and all that crazy life. And even me, got my feet wet a little bit, trying to live that life. But it's one of those things that, hey, listen, you see people and you see how you just fall through a crack and all this was happening in this beautiful borough of the Bronx, the boogie down Bronx. Woo, let's get it. And that's what the Bronx meant to me. It made me who I am. It made me strong. That's for sure. It made me see that there's a lot of colorful people, and in farming. Hey, I take pride. I love my history. I love my social study. I was a social study, geek. Woo, high school, all that good stuff. But that's because here in the Bronx, you start meeting, let's say, even though I'm in Puerto Rico, I'm a little bit young, but you kind of hear of Dominicans, but then you hear in how can I say it? Here in the United States, in the Bronx, especially my Haven, you got Mexicans, Ecuadorians, Guatemalan, couple of European here and there, more of Italians, depending on what is it that they did. Once in a while you get the Irish, you get a little bit of mixed bag. You got the Bangladesh people. Who am I missing? Peru, Cuba. No Canadians? No Canadians. All right. We got it covered. But you understand? In Jamaican, hey, my people. And then once you start in the Bronx here, once again, because, a lot of people are like, well, what happens here in Queens and blah. I'm like, hey, I'm talking about the Bronx here. Let's go. Because we got savages. Woo! We got savages. Let's go. And you understand the different culture. You start to understand, like, why are you here? Why are you here? People from, Dominican Republic, Cuba, Mexicans, again, South American, all these territories, they came here in this country, in this beautiful borough, and you start to learn. You start to learn their culture. You start to learn their tradition. You start to learn, the food. Oh, come on now. I be straight up. I don't think that I ever met any quote-unquote Spanish food. That's what they're going to call it. That I could say, it's not one country. I ate from the most, Ecuadorian, Mexican, Peru, you name it. Venezuela, let's go. Dominican, come on now. Chill, relax. Puerto Rican, you already know. Tate quieto, relax. But these are the different cultures that came and I started to kind of learn here. Boom, like, okay. And that's what's special in the Bronx. And then as you get older, and I go to this high school, 1199 high school, shout out to that high school that just lasted, not too long, maybe like 5-6 years. And they were located in a section in the Bronx, in Middletown Road, Middletown section, around Bureau Avenue. You already know, Westchester Square. And that was another part of the Bronx. Now, I'm an East Coast type of person in the Bronx. We're talking about the 6 train. Hey, listen, I had some fun with the 4 train for a little bit, but relax. The 205, I'm a 6 train kind of type of dude, you know what I mean? Westchester Avenue, all the way to downtown Lexington. Let's go. And I kid you not, and I remember one time, a long time ago, I was young. I was helping my brother. We were hired to help this dude, whatever the case might be. And I'm like there in some parking lot in a Burger King. And I see this place in the Bronx, and I'm like, am I in a Bronx? And we've been talking about that Middletown Road type of section. You already know, for those who are familiar with that area. It's a little different because it has a little bit of everything. It's like industrialized, commercialized, a lot of blue collar working people, white collar too, a lot of working people. I mean, we're talking about working, straight up working people. But it would just seem so different than like the crowded areas in my haven that I'm so used to. Another thing, but for some reason, for some people that don't know, the Bronx is the greenest borough, meaning that we have more trees. If I'm not mistaken, because we got the biggest park in New York City, which is Pelham Bay Park. Woo! But I'm in that Middletown area as I start going to high school for 4 years. That area was also so different because you had a lot of Italians, Albanians. You got people from like certain areas, and I'm like, oh, this is in the Bronx. And in that area, as you take the 6 train all the way to Pelham, you get out, you start walking, you start seeing mansions. $3 million. You already know East Tremont up there by Darksnake. That's another beautiful area. There's a lot of beautiful areas in the Bronx. I'm telling you, working people, all that. I know that we got our bad, of course. A lot of our bad. And hopefully, hopefully we could get together and then, try to focus on something, we could help each other out. Because what happens is that in the Bronx, there's a lot of low-income buildings and apartments. And, unfortunately, you want to help people, but there's some people that take advantage of the system, and there's some people that fall through the cracks. And now out of nowhere, they want everybody to pay. Oh, let me just walk out there strapped. Oh, this dude right here, he's looking at me hard. He owes me money or some, crazy stuff. Or he's selling that dope. Boom, boom. Then a kid dies. You know what I mean? Yeah, we got to stop with that. But relax, Bronx. Let's go. Darkston. We got Darkston. That's another area. Nice area. They got the Ave there in East Tremont. Shout out to Yankee Stadium, Kingsbridge, Fordham, bro. Come on. Fordham. Let's go. That was another nice area. There's some, I'm going to say like Cortland area in Riverdale. Yes, Riverdale. It is part of the Bronx, even though there's a little chunk out there that it's not. It's part of the Bronx. People out there in Riverdale. There's a lot of certain people that, just tend to have some extra money and be like, yeah, we're not in the Bronx, we're in Riverdale. Come on, you're in the Bronx. And it all that was meant to me because that's what the Bronx is. We got different areas, different places, different things to do. Shopping areas and all this different culture and all that combined together. And that's what made me, in a sense, me, that I was able to kind of learn and just listen and observe what the Bronx have meant to me. All right, my peoples, my legendary folks out there, feel free if you have a Bronx story or whatever story and how New York City and whatever you growing up or your part that it made you who you are, let us know. Hit the comment, hit the like, share that button like always because we doing something legendary. Well, once again, my name is David and I'm your host of Deconstructing Topic Podcast. Once again, feel free to share. Like all that good stuff. Hit me up. I'm out of here. Woo! I'm out. Peace. Woo!